And welcome to my garden. It is currently early May here in Idaho. Here I have totally redone my garden. I have added 6 new garden beds, a beautiful greenhouse, and today, since planting is knocking on our door, we are going to work on our watering system. I actually made all of the sprinklers, but I am going to walk you through all of them that I have and just show you step by step kind of what I did to create my super simple garden sprinklers. In my garden, I have 9 raised garden beds and then 2 kind of in-ground planting areas. I'm going to take you through all of the different gardening zones and how I'm watering them and what kind of systems I'm using to water them. I have found just through trial and error that kind of watering 3 beds with these sprinklers at a time works the best, and I get good water pressure and I don't have to worry about it. I can sometimes turn on the water and water 2 zones at once, but if my husband has the sprinklers running in the grass, I can only water 1 zone at a time. So I kind of took that into account that if I need to run 2 hoses, I can, but I can also just water 1 zone at a time. So let's get into our different watering zones and how I'm setting up my watering for this summer. First things first, we needed a latte. This is a white chocolate latte, one of my favorites. I use white chocolate powder instead of sauce, and I think it tastes so much better. Okay, first I'm going to give you an overview of my different watering zones, and then I'm going to show you how I have the sprinklers kind of set up. My in-ground area. This area, I currently have black landscaping fabric. This is where all of my flowers kind of live, and I plant some pumpkins here also. But to manage weeds, I have just found the landscaping fabric is so much easier. So for here, this is all ran off of irrigation pipe. So I have the intake hose here and 1/2-inch irrigation pipe. Okay, so I've got the 1/2-inch irrigation pipe, and it is the main feeder. So on here, I have 3 drip irrigation lines that feed this row because I have 3 holes going all the way down. And then again, the main thing, another set of 3 irrigation lines. These are all drip tubing. And then I have a shutoff valve because these up here water way faster than my drip tubing does down here. So when I had it all as one, these up here were getting completely soaked and these down here weren't getting enough water. So this allows me to have it all as one hose, and after like 10 minutes I just turn off the hose to the upper half. So the bottom half is all fed by drip irrigation, and then the top half, my 1/2-inch irrigation comes up, it tees here, and all the way down it just has these little tubes for watering each of my dahlias going down the line. And then we come up, we have a 90, and then this top line waters my peonies, and then I do pumpkins back there. And so everything on this top half is just drip watered using these spigots. So that is watering zone 1, my in-ground flower area. Watering zones 1 and 2 are set up almost identically. My sprinkler systems are a little bit different just because I built these 2 sprinkler systems last year, and then I built these 4 sprinkler systems this year, so they're just a little bit different. But setup wise, they are almost identical. Zone 2 has these 3 garden beds here, and zone 3 has these 3 beds. Like I said, I just found having them separated into 3 beds each worked best for water pressures and stuff like that. I can run all 6 at the same time, but sometimes I don't want all 6 at the same time. This is one of the sprinkler sets that I built this year. The ones I built last year are almost identical. I just have a center rod going down the middle, but I figured I didn't need that this year, and it turns out I didn't, and it was just an easier process. So inside each of these beds, I have 3/4 inch PVC pipe with different corner fittings. The PVC pipe is drilled with 1/16 of an inch holes every like 8-ish inches. I started out with about 8 to 12 inches apart and then added in more holes if I felt like certain areas weren't getting watered evenly. So it's super easy. Start with less holes than you think you need because it's easier to add holes than take them back. I have learned that from experience. Last year I added way too many holes and I had to figure out a way to fill in the holes. Okay, so when I was planning out these beds, I knew that I was going to have 3 beds in one watering zone. And I started off with my bed that I was going to hook the hose into. So let's go ahead and look at that. I always choose the middle bed as the bed that I'm going to hook the hose into. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but in my brain, it just made sense to choose the middle one so that the water didn't have to push all the way to the end. It kind of goes into the middle one and then separates out into the other 2 beds. I bet you this system would still work if you had one and you didn't hook into the middle system. That's just what I did. So let's go ahead and take a look at the bed that has my intake, and I'll show you kind of what fittings I'm using and how I'm going in and out of each of the beds. So my intake is going into the middle bed, which is this one here. Is I just measured what the dimensions of the interior of my bed is and then just took off a couple inches because of the PVC pipe doesn't have to go all the way to the edge for everything to get watered. So I just roughly measured the interior and cut all of the pipe to be that length. We have our hose intake. All of these are purchased in the PVC section of Home Depot. So we've got the intake hose. This is just where a regular garden hose hooks in. And then I have a T. I'll show you how I did the other bed. I used a 90 instead of a T. I don't think it really matters. And then it goes down that way, comes this way. I have a 90-degree part. And then over here is where my water is moving from this bed to this bed. A small piece of PVC and then another 90-degree coming out. These, I decided to use irrigation pipe to connect the 2 beds. So you can buy a PVC to 1/2 inch irrigation connector, which is what I did. And then I just used irrigation. So it's an irrigation 90. Comes down, I buried it a couple inches here. There's a 90, a piece of irrigation that goes here, a 90, comes up, and 90s into this other bed. Is the exact same setup. So all of my corners where I am coming out of the bed look like this. So the first bed has a T, 1, 2, 3 90s, and 2 of these 3-way 90s. That's what we're going to call it. The first bed, since I have them grouped into 3s, is like the most complicated because it has an in and 2 outs. The other 2 beds are super simple. So this bed, I just have that same setup with the 3-way 90 up with pipe and a 90 out. And then all of the rest are just 90-degree corners. So you just need an in there, and then the rest are 90s. If I were to be connecting this to another bed, you would just have another one of these wherever it made sense for you to have that corner. Here is that. And then similar thing with this other garden bed it has 1, 2, 3 90s, and then one of the 3-way 90s, PVC, and a 90. Gardening zone 3 looks almost exactly like the other zone does. I just had old sprinklers that I was repurposing. So this is where I'm plugging in my hose here. I repurposed these. So I ended up adding the T on top of a 3-way 90 because for some, I don't know where this one was before, but so I still have a T for my hose inlet and then a 3-way 90. And then you can see this one, I ended up adding this middle support. It's completely unnecessary. So these style where it's just the exterior work fantastic. You do not need to add the middle. So ignore that on these. If you have any questions about how I laid these out, let me know in the comments and I'm happy to answer any questions. I am just trying to explain it the best that I can. So now we are in garden zone 4. This is my last set of raised beds. These were the 3 raised beds that I had last year. And so it is set up almost identical to the other ones with a tiny adjustment. So I'll show you. So these are the sprinklers I said that have the middle. The middle is unnecessary. You do not need it. Again, my sprinkler intake is in my middle bed. And then these beds, as you can see, are just connected with PVC pipe. That's what worked best for me last year. I didn't do the irrigation connections and bury it under the ground and all of that jazz. I just connected everything with PVC pipe. One thing that I think is super helpful when you're building these sprinkler systems is you do need to glue all of your pieces together to make sure everything kind of holds together and it doesn't fall apart. I last year didn't glue it and I just had issues with things falling apart when I was trying to water because I missed gluing a couple pieces. So you do need to glue everything together, but I assemble everything as normal, make sure that everything is working how I want it to work, and then I go and glue all of the pieces together. So I have ran water through these systems and everything before I glue them together, because once it's glued together, you can't like take things apart and rearrange it, cuts things, everything like that. So I highly recommend laying everything out, connecting it together, drilling your holes, doing everything and testing it out, and then gluing everything together. That is my entire watering system that I'm going to be using for this gardening season. If you have any questions at all, please leave them down in the comments and I will do my best to explain through any questions that you might have. Happy gardening!